Whiskey sales are down, distilleries are reducing production, and cooperages are being closed.
In fact, some experts are saying that the golden age of the bourbon boom is coming to an end.
In this video, we're going to explore potential threats, the decrease of interest in bourbon,
That's
and
right.
if we really are coming to the end of the bourbon boom.
And when are we gonna do all that?
Right after this.
Don't come round and waste my time. A generation of my time. There is nothing we can do. Stop this plague from breaking through.
Welcome to Whiskey Talk. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Zane.
Are you sure you're Zane?
I'm positive today.
Today you're Zane and I'm Jeff.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about the end of the bourbon boom,
The
maybe?
complete finishing. It's over. It's done. Sell your stash.
I'm out of here.
But before we do anything else, we probably should do this very important task.
Tap into our stash.
Our stash. And today we're going to tap into Penelope Rosé Cask Finish.
It just rolls off the tongue. I almost said it
Rosé.
myself.
Should we crack this open?
I say we shall.
Wait.
Oh, look at that. He left it sealed. What a noob.
What a maroon.
Hey, should we try this?
I say we try it.
Let's try this.
Well, I guess we'll review this when.
Next week on Second Pour.
That's right. So, hey, join us next week when we do a full review on said whiskey.
When will then be now? Soon.
Okay, so we were talking about in this episode, we're going to talk about the golden age of bourbon.
Yes.
And if the bourbon boom is coming to an end.
That is correct.
To talk about those things, there's a couple of pieces we need to talk within that. So the first thing is saturation. The market is actually saturated. Like there's more new brands coming out
That's right.
all the time, and it makes it hard for a consumer to discern which brand they're gonna go with, because there's always this new craft whiskey on the market.
That's what I was going to say. I remember when the craft whiskey was like, oh, that's something I haven't seen yet.
Now it's like all the time.
Now
right?
that's everything. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I remember on the aisles, there was like, this was the whiskey section.
Yeah.
And now it's like, this is the whiskey section. It's like, it's huge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's always a new whiskey coming out from some craft distillery somewhere. And the funny thing is, a lot of those are just buying whiskeys from like MGPs and Jim Beams and Bardstowns and those places.
And then just putting jelly beans in them and say that they finished them.
They're licking off the red,
Yeah.
off that jelly bean and putting it in
And
there.
putting it in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
what they do.
That's what they. Is that what they do?
Yeah, that's how you get these beautiful colors like this.
Oh, is this the amber color?
Yeah, the amber color.
There is a saturation going on, but also there is an inflation amount going on. People can't afford sometimes to buy their own groceries or pay their utilities, buy a home. So whiskey's not really the top end of that budget, right?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
The secondary market's suffering because of that even.
Right.
And even, I remember I read an article here just recently, a guy used to buy like barrels and sell, bottle them and sell them.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to be able to get rid of that barrel for 6 months.
Well, I personally have seen some of the, I kind of like ninja follow some places on Facebook.
So
some
that's
guys that
called
do
a creeper.
I'm a creeper. That's it. I'm that guy. And you know what I've noticed is like the traffic has like gone way down.
I would believe that.
So it's like there's not a whole bunch of the exchanges taking place or people trying to get together. And it's kind of fizzled, shall we say.
I would say, and I think that leads to our next thing. I think one thing we're seeing is an oversupply is starting to happen. For a long time, a lot of distilleries have been ramping up, to meet the demand of the popular demand of bourbon.
Yeah.
They can't meet this demand. There's too much. This is what is feeding the secondary markets. It's feeding the secondary market prices in like liquor stores even.
Well, I remember like it was like season 2 of Whiskey Pop. Maybe it was even season 1. We were talking about that the Japanese whiskeys were in such a low state that it was like hard to fill anything because they had they didn't have anything to replenish with.
So it's like what, Hibiki 21 year?
That's right.
It doesn't even exist anymore because it just got eaten alive by, was it lost in translation and the popularity of Japanese whiskey that they just bought all that
Everybody
up.
bought it all.
Well, it takes 21 years to.
Yeah.
So it's like if the demand can't go any fast, you can't meet that any
But
faster.
see, the same thing is like just the general regular, Hibiki branded whiskeys. They were being bought off too. But now, guess what happens when I go in?
Yeah, they're starting to show back.
They're showing up on the shelf, just like we're finding Nika. All of their offerings are back on the shelves. If I need a really good rye whiskey, I can go and just get a High West anywhere I want to go now.
Yeah.
The only things that don't show up are like Midnight Summer's Dram. Well, your trendier, intentionally less volume.
But
whiskey.
I think what's happening though is we're starting to see from this gluttony of whiskey showing back up in the marketplace. Like there's been whiskeys outside even those Japanese whiskeys, I agree, that have started to show back up on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I'm already starting to see like some of these guys starting to rebrand their bottles and the way they look just to try to attract new whiskey drinkers because it is impacting them. And I think that gluttony and that profit that it's hitting is going to hurt those small craft distilleries. So those ones that have been coming up on the marketplace, and you see them, they'll be like $50 to $90 for a bottle. It's like their first bottle they've ever produced.
Lord, how about I give you 32 cents and you give me a rum lifesaver and a glass of water?
Well, see, there's another trend I've been noticing too. We're talking about oversaturation, and I think this is these small craft whiskeys they're compensating for the issue of people not buying their bottle. So they'll introduce a whiskey, right? But they'll introduce at the same time a 4-year, or 5, or a 7, sometimes even like an 8-year, all at once. Or this one is like a rough cut, chilled filter, and this one is going to be but they all release them at the same time. And I think that's to try to just grab as much of the dollars that are out there as possible as quick as they can.
I think you're right. Well, so like that's the other thing we're seeing is the habits have changed.
Yeah.
Hey, I bet.
I hate that guy.
Recently, they talked about how Brown Foreman, who runs, quite a bit of different whiskeys, closed an actual cooperage because they had a 12% decrease in sales in the first quarter, or a large decrease in sales in the first quarter, and they had a 12% decrease in their labor.
Yeah.
So they cut 12% out, and they closed the cooperage because they're already seeing these major drops in habits of people buying whiskey.
And back to habits, where is it transferring to? Are people not doing alcohol?
No, that's not true. So like in 2022, agave-based things like tequila and mezcal actually overtook the bourbon market, and they became the second fastest growing alcohol spirit in the industry.
So next week, join us on Mezcal Pop, where we talk everything mezcal.
He laughs, but we actually have I think a tequila coming down the line.
Stop it.
That we are going to review.
No, thank you. I'm out.
Hey, it is whiskey pop, but there are other spirits out there.
Is there?
No, there is.
Yeah, there is.
So trends are also showing that Gen Z may not be the drinkers that all of us and our parents before us were.
We're holding out for those millennials, man. Y'all are the last hope.
I mean, guys, come on. I know you're depressed right now.
You gotta really hate everything. Wait, what are we trying to promote here?
We're not trying to promote alcoholism, that's for sure.
Hey, we just want to bring them up to our level. What can we say?
Well, there's not a social stigma anymore that you're a grown up because you drink.
Oh, there's not any stigmas anymore.
I think that's changed. I mean, when we were kids, if you were drinking, you were of age. You know what I mean? Even if you weren't of age. Because none of us drank underage.
No, we didn't do that.
Oh, no more Yankee, my wanky. The donga need food.
So people have become a lot more health conscious recently.
Oh, sure.
Just like how we were talking a few weeks ago about how they're wanting to put labels on alcohol,
saying it's going to be cancer in a
it
bottle.
could cause cancer. But there's a real interest in health right now, and alcohol is taking a hit because of that. Not just because of that label or the idea of that label. There are people are like pop, soda pop, Coke, however you want to call it in your area. It's having a decrease, right? People aren't drinking pop like they used to. Soda pop or Coke, they're not drinking it like they used to.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I think alcohol is taking that same kind of hit.
Yeah, I only drink carbonated liquid. Our sponsor for today.
That's not a sponsor. We're gonna blur that out now. They're not a sponsor.
But the habit trend's exactly what you're talking about. Like you said, I've like pretty much completely cut out most soda, completely.
Yeah, it's true. And I think a lot of people are doing that with alcohol.
Yeah, well, I haven't done that. I'm you know.
There is a movement right now of people saying that they've gone, you know, just clean. So like they're not drinking, they're not doing drugs, they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of boring.
Yeah.
No, it sounds boring.
The Great Depression passed anyone?
It's the other thing that may be hitting alcohol is weed has become a very socially acceptable drug.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were growing up, that was the entry drug to everything.
Oh, if you smoked weed, it was heroin the next day.
That's right.
That's what
you
we're
were on
told.
PCP like at grandma's house in
Yeah.
her basement when she wasn't looking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you smoke the devil's lettuce, by God,
The devil's lettuce.
this is a gateway drug straight to hell.
Because drugs are bad, okay?
But because weed has become so popular, a lot of people are replacing whiskey with weed. And I can't blame them. Weed's actually cheaper than most bourbon. But don't act like you don't know. What we're saying is it does seem like the bourbon boom may be popping, right?
Yeah. So,
And I know we're listing all these things as like why we feel like it is, but I think like in the last 6 months, we have seen a major increase of whiskeys that weren't around for the last 5 years
which is a
on
big
the
deal.
shelf again.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only is it on the shelf, but it's already starting to like level out to a price that it used to be.
It's getting
not
closer.
completely.
But not.
I mean, I think some people are still selling Blantons for like $100. You're just like, really?
Oh, are you kidding me?
So the inflated prices and those hard to find whiskeys are starting to decrease. And I think the secondary market's taking a pretty big hit too. I don't hear people, when I talk to people now about secondary market, it's usually the same response. It's like, yeah, I don't buy from the secondary market.
Yeah, nobody's doing the scalper's price anymore.
The economy has changed things quite a bit.
Right.
I mean, people are focusing on things they really need and have to have.
That's right.
And even though whiskey used to be the everyman drink, like every man could afford whiskey, that changed, what, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah,
When this exploded,
the prices of everything went
and
up.
the prices
Yeah,
went increasingly crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we watched, like, remember when like Blanton's was a good example at that time. It was like $50, $60.
Yeah, 50 or 60
And then
bucks.
last time we saw it was like $125. Weller 12.
Yeah.
Remember we could buy that for like $50.
And it was on the shelf like all the time.
Yeah, it was always there, and nobody wanted it. And then all of a sudden, it's like in secondary markets for like $400 a bottle.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That has stopped.
Let's put it this way. It was inflated. It wasn't based on like the way the industry had been growing small amounts as the years were going by. Then suddenly, boom, it had this huge inflated spike.
Yeah.
And so they thought, oh, this is going to be our new norm. And then when that dropped off, it's still higher than it was when before that jump happened, but they're still seeing this huge drop off.
Well, and I think what we saw in that is I think you saw a lot of opportunists. So a lot of people came in with some money. And sometimes that would be like, you know, people just not in the industry. They're like, hey, I just want to start my own whiskey brand. And they would do that. They would create these little craft distilleries that, you know, it was a craft whiskey, but they weren't making the whiskey, they're just buying the whiskey. And it made that marketplace just more crowded because they're trying to cash in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's popular, I can make a whole lot of cash right now, and then in and out kind of deal. And the problem is the out kind of deal leaves this gluttony of whiskey because those other producers who do produce whiskey all the time were producing that plus theirs.
Yeah.
And it just creates this huge open space of what do we do with all this?
Yeah.
Well, if I know, sir.
What does all this mean for us? I mean, as far as the bourbon boom itself or bourbon in general, I mean, do we have a prediction, a thought process of where this is going?
Well, you know, the research still says that the whiskey industry as a whole, the bourbon industry as a whole, is still due for major growth over the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So all I think that means, though, is what we might see is a decrease in what the output and availability is anymore of the brands. So like those, we've already seen this, like Penelope.
Yeah.
It's a small brand. They started making their own whiskeys. They were buying it from MGP. They started making some good money. MGP bought them. And I think some of these bigger conglomerate places are going to buy some of these craft whiskey makers that they feel like they probably have a good following. Their brand has done really well, and they're going to grab them. But I think a lot of them are just going to disappear.
Yeah, unless they already have a really
solid
big
brand.
stranglehold and the brand's there.
And I think those actually probably will end up getting eaten up by, like, you know, your Brown Formans, your MGPs,
Yeah.
you know, your Saseracs, your Lux Rose. I think those guys are going to buy some of those.
Just to be in control of the market.
Yeah, because then they can control the market. They have much stronger buying power. And I think a lot of those small craft distilleries are like, we won't survive unless we sell as fast as we can and get out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're headed. We could be wrong. We could see like a whole new explosion. Not really feeling that right now.
You're crazy. You're crazy, man. You're crazy.
What about you? Do you feel like we are at the end of the bourbon boom? Or do you feel like this is just kind of a break?
Yeah.
Kind of a quiet moment?
It's a little blip in the radar.
And it's just going to pick back up, and these old guys just know what they're talking about. Let us know in the comments down
below. And don't forget to like, share, and
subscribe. And most importantly, ding Zane's dong.
Because that's how you know that I've got new stuff just for you.
Because we have tons of videos that talk about other things about whiskey, reviews, and pop culture.
That's right.
One of these days, we'll actually talk about pop culture again.
We might do that.
Or we might not.
We'll have to wait and see.
In the meantime, you guys continue to be geeky, and we'll see you next week as we review Penelope Rosé Cask Finish and see if we like it or not.
So, hey, cheers.
Cheers.